So it seems like you guys really did not hate the last explanation video I made, and by that I mean no one really called me a fucking idiot, which I could actually say that now without, being scared of YouTube demonetizing my videos, because YouTube already demonetized my entire channel. But that doesn't matter. That's not important right now. As you can tell from the video, I'm going to explain how some events and some combos work in one of my favorite sets of all time in the entire game, The Melancholy of Haruhi Suzumiya.
No, not yet. You're doing Nisekoi right now.
Oh, I mean Nisekoi. If you're new to my channel, first off, welcome. Expect a video once every full moon. And one fact about me is that I love Nisekoi. It's a great series filled with lovable characters, and one of my first videos was actually on a bootleg Ultra Chitoge figure. I'll put a link up here or down in the description below. I actually got that figure off of Wish, and it's actually kind of passable, and I still have it up on my bookshelf over here. Also, Nisekoi was one of the first decks that I ever built. I built a tricolor Nisekoi deck, I still run it, and I honestly do love playing it, and I'm always working on it. It's a really fun deck to play. Different builds run different combos, and they don't generally play the same. A Promised Pendant deck and a Sweet deck are not gonna have the exact same playstyle. So in this video I'm going to talk about the Promised Pendants. It doesn't matter what kind of build you are running, you will have Promised Pendants in your deck. A lot of cards do have synergy with the Promised Pendants, and the Promised Pendants themselves are actually pretty decent cards as well. Back in the day, Nisekoi was a top tier deck. It was extremely consistent and extremely powerful as well. At one point, a majority of the Promised Pendant build was on the ban list. Nisekoi was completely gutted. Today, most of the cards in Nisekoi are off the ban list, minus one card, but we'll get to that later. Oh, and of course I'm talking about the JP ban list. The English doesn't have a ban list. Oh, and before we start, Chitoge, Marika, Onodera, and Raku are all key characters. She's an heiress, she's a police, she's a sweets, and he's an animal. And they come in red yellow, red blue, blue green, and yellow blue. Good. Now let's get going. Promised Pendant is a 1-1 event that comes in 4 different flavors, but they all have the same last effect. Put this card into your memory. Which is crazy because you're compressing your deck. If you send a Promised Pendant to your memory, that means that your deck will now have 49 cards instead of 50 cards, and so on. So if you get rid of all your Promised Pendants, you're running 46 cards. The yellow Promised Pendant, it's simple. Search your deck for a key character, show it to your opponent, add it to your hand. It's super self-explanatory. It's one of the searches of the deck, and there are actually a lot of good targets that you could use this card on. And for certain cards that we'll actually talk about later, it's almost as if you pay one and you play a key character straight from your deck onto the field. The green has a restriction where you must have a key character on the field or else you can't play it, which honestly, you're gonna have a key character on the field. Choose one character and they get plus 3,500 until your opponent's next turn. That's a hella large buff, and it's overall a good defensive card, and you can help one of your cards stay on the field for a whole lot longer. The blue is a counter event, plus 3,000. One drawback is that it is on an event, so you have to meet the color requirement, but if you play your ratios of your deck efficiently, or if you're just running a sweets deck, you'll be fine. Plus 3,000 on a level 1 counter is actually pretty big because most of those only go up to plus 2,500. Last Promised Pendant is the red one. Rest 2 of your characters, salvage up to 2 key characters, and then you ditch a card. Pay 1, rest 2, ditch 1. It does seem like a lot for a salvage, but again, this is on a level 1. Like I mentioned with the yellow Promised Pendant, if you get the right cards, this is putting you at a huge advantage. So those are all the Promised Pendants, and what can you do with them? The following cards are the ones that benefit from the Promised Pendant. Starting at level 0, we have at the Secret Place Kosaki, a 0/0 character with this effect for her first, and her second is pay 1 and on play from the hand. If you have 2 or more Promised Pendants in memory, you can search your deck for a key character and then add it to your hand. I have played games where there are 2 or more Promised Pendants in my memory, so you could pay 1 and search for those high level game breaking cards. So pretty much you shouldn't really worry about not having more than 2 Promised Pendants in your memory. At the level 1s we have Weekend Day Chitoge, one of my favorite cards in the set. She's a 1/0 yellow character with the effect, if you have a Promised Pendant in your memory, she gets plus 2,000 power. So if you don't have her in your hand, and you have a Promised Pendant, either play red or yellow and you could get this card. You could also get this card here if you're running the red one and that's in your waiting room. And then you could just play her straight out because she is free, so you only play 1 stock for the Promised Pendant that you're going to use. And then you gotta rest to ditch one if you're using the red one. And then she gets boosted up to 6,500 because you used the Promised Pendant to get her. And this is permanently. If you use the green one, she does go up to 10,000 until the end of your opponent's turn. Same if she's getting frontal attack, you use the blue Promised Pendant, she goes up to 3,000. So if you don't originally have a Promised Pendant in there, she is going to go up to 7,500, and then with the Promised Pendant in your memory, she will get the base of 6,500. She's a great offensive card and a really good defensive card as well. Another alternative is actually another one of my favorite cards in the set, Head Tilt Marika, a 1/0 red character. On play from hand, look at the top card of your deck. If it is a key character, which most likely it will be, add it to your hand and then you ditch a card. So it's an on-play hand filtration card, which is great. I actually really do love those cards. It helps keeps your hand alive, but also this effect is mandatory. So if you play the card and you top check something that you don't really want, and you have something in your hand that you do want or do need, you have to pull off the effect. It's mandatory. If you're under that situation, you might not want to play it, but it's still a really good card because its Promised Pendant effect is that it turns into a level 1 bomb. So any level 1 or lower character cannot attack it without being reversed. Just like I said with Weekend Day Chitoge, search her with yellow and she will get her effect. It will also dig deeper into your deck because of her top deck check. You'll be getting 2 cards out of your deck minimum, assuming you use the yellow Promised Pendant. You get Marika out of the deck, the Promised Pendant goes into memory, and possibly a 3rd card when you play her and you top check your deck. She's also a really good red Promised Pendant target, because that way you could recycle her over and over again. Here is Faithful Lottery Kosaki, a green 1/0 character. She is almost like the Weekend Day Chitoge. She has Clock Encore, which is great, so there is no need to worry about having the necessary cards in your hand. And when this card attacks, if you have Promised Pendant in your memory, she gains plus 2,000. So just like the Weekend Day Chitoge, she goes up to 6,500. Only when she attacks. This one's 6,500 permanently. This one gets it only when it attacks. But she also has Clock Encore. But this one might not need Clock Encore because 6,500 is pretty strong. Pick your poison honestly, depending on what kind of deck you're running. But you know, they're both great cards. Here is Swimsuit Kosaki, a 1/1 green character. She has a level assist 500 forward, and her Promised Pendant effect is rest 2 characters and choose 1 character, and they get this effect. When the chosen character's battle opponent is reversed, you may put the top card of your deck to your stock. This one requires a little more setup than the others. You will be paying 1 for the Promised Pendant, and then you have to pay another stock to get this on the field, while the other cards that we did show were free. Although you do get the stock back with its own effect. This is really good for the Weekend Day Chitoge or the Faithful Lottery Kosaki because you will most likely reverse a card and get that stock back, unless your opponent uses a backup.
Oh, those backups ruin everything.
Or you're guaranteed a reverse with the Head Tilt Marika. Last card in the level 1s is Words of Promise Chitoge, a red 1/0 character that has global 500 to all your key characters, and you have 2 or more Promised Pendants in your memory. It also gives out 500 forward. Nice. Lets your Weekend Day and Faithful Lottery stay on the field a whole lot longer. Also, you know, every other card that's on the field. Although I'm only talking about the cards with the Promised Pendant clause, these 2 support cards are really great in general, and they benefit every single card in the deck. Over in the level 2s, we have 3 cards, but I'll save the other one for later. The first card is Swimsuit Chitoge, a 2/1 yellow character. Her effect is for every Promised Pendant you have, she gains 1,000. Pretty decent. Would be better if her base stats were at least, 8,000, or if she swung for 2 soul. But again, still a decent card. Natsuedo Kosaki is nearly the same card, but it's slightly better. 1 Promised Pendant automatically makes her a 9,000 power card. Most likely you will have 2 Promised Pendants, so Chitoge will go up to 9,500, but the Kosaki just needs 1, but god damn it, I wish they swung for 2 soul. Also, Kosaki is a JP promo exclusive. Gather around, children, and I'll tell you a story about 2 cards that made people hate Nisekoi in the Weiss Schwarz meta. Now, these 2 cards were so devastating that they both got on the Forbidden and Limited list in Japan, and they nearly dragged the entire engine along with them. In English, Bushiroad said, "No, there's no way, fuck that, we're not dealing with those cards," and they completely changed how both of these cards worked. Some say that the English cards are in fact inferior to the original Japanese, while some people say, well, actually, there's no discrepancy there. Everybody pretty much agrees that the English cards are a whole lot worse than the Japanese. So let's talk about Marika and Kosaki. The first card we have is Maiden's Heart Kosaki, a 3/2 blue character with 3 effects. She becomes an early drop when you have 2 or more Promised Pendants, and believe me, you will have 2 in your memory. She also gets plus 1000 if you have 2 or more music characters, so she makes up for somewhat lack of power in that department, and yes, back row counts. And her last effect is on play from hand. Search your deck for 1 music character, reveal it, add it to your hand, and then shuffle your deck. Holy shit, run 3 to 4 at all times. You can search herself out or another support card that you need, but honestly, you don't really need to run level 2s because this is gonna hit the field nearly every time. One card that you could get from this card's effect or any other Promised Pendant effect is your main beater, Maiden's Heart Marika, a 3/2 red character. 2 or more Promised Pendants lets you deal 1 damage to your opponent. Then you have 2 or more other key characters, you can pay 2, ditch 3, and she restands. Wow, 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 wow. This card is limited to 1 per deck for a really good reason. It's a great card, and well, here's what these cards do in English. Honestly, they're not that great. So those are the cards that benefit from Promised Pendants, and you know, some stuff can happen. Promised Pendants either end up in your stock, or they get brainstormed, or in your clock. They'll have to go somewhere, and that's the waiting room. We gotta start with the main man himself, 2 of a kind Raku. He's a 0/0 blue character with 2 effects. His first is that he is a global 500 to all key characters, and on play, ditch a card and you get a salvage a Promised Pendant. He's one of the mainstays in the Promised Pendant engine because he guarantees you that you will not be short on those Promised Pendants. That global 500 is a good bonus as well. My boy Raku has been locked up and he is currently free, and rightfully so. Next we have 3 cards that are PR cards, and holy shit, that's so expensive! Chitoge gives the middle character plus 1000 power during your turn, Onodera gives the middle character plus 1000 during your opponent's turn, and Marika is on play. Top check your deck and either put it in your waiting room or leave it at the top of your deck. All 3 have the same final effect, and that is on play from your hand, pay 1, and salvage a Promised Pendant from your waiting room. There is this card as well. It's like the mini Chitoge, plus 1000 to another character in the center slot, and you pay 1 to salvage. Also, this is a JP promo card exclusive. So between the Raku and the minis, I prefer the minis, but Raku can be more alive than the others because you will need to ditch a card and save the stock for the Promised Pendant. Especially early game, you want to save up those stocks for the level 1s and the level 2s. Although it doesn't really matter since most of your level 1 game is free, but Raku has more utility because he's a global 500. Here is Modest Personality Kosaki, a 2/1 blue character with a climax combo. And believe me, it's relevant. When this card attacks, is promised from long ago, is in your climax area, choose up to 1 Promised Pendant in your waiting room and place it in your memory. And this card gets plus 2000 until the end of your opponent's turn. So if you're slightly behind, you can use this to get the Promised Pendants into your memory. Their effects won't trigger, but at least you'll have them in your memory for your level 3s and your level 1 support cards. Since Promised Pendants are compressing your deck, that's a good thing. Well, this card sends your Promised Pendants out of the memory and into your waiting room. Here is not good at Romance Chitoge, a 0/0 yellow character, and she is plus 500 forward and send a Promised Pendant from your memory to the waiting room. Choose a character and that character gets plus 1001 soul until the end of the turn. So you could recycle your Promised Pendants by using your Rakus and the minis. What's good is that you don't need to use the stock to get the Promised Pendant out of the memory. What you can use that stock for is either playing the Promised Pendant or using that stock for the minis. Get whatever you want, but you might want to get either the yellow, the green, or the red. That way you could advance your plays a little more. How about something for the mirror match? Hint Haru is a 0/0 green character and global 500 for all sweets characters, and for every Promised Pendant in your opponent's memory, all of your other sweets characters gain plus 500. And yes, this does stack. Those are all the cards that work with the Promised Pendants, but honestly, all the cards work with Promised Pendants. I don't have a gameplay example like I did in my last video, but here are some sample plays. Right from the start, when you draw your hand, you want to get rid of anything you don't need, obviously, but if you get a Promised Pendant in your hand, depending on what you also have in that hand, it depends on whether you should toss it right away and get a new card, or clock it, or use something else with it. For example, if you get a mini card or a Raku, you want to get rid of it. Clock it or send it to the waiting room. When you get the stock, drop down one of the minis and you could get the Promised Pendant back when you're ready to play it. Or if you could use the Raku, play it, ditch a card, get the Promised Pendant back. What I do in some games is that I clock the Promised Pendant, draw 2, leave it in my clock. When I level up, either play the Raku or the Mini, get it back, then I play the Promised Pendant. In this situation, I would say using the Raku would be a lot more helpful, because that way you're not paying an extra stock to use the Promised Pendant. Because if you drop down a Mini, pay one to use the Promised Pendant, you might want to save up the stock a bit. Although, again, it entirely does work out, because a majority of the cards that benefit from the Promised Pendant and a majority of your level 1 engine is also free of cost. Like, actually, all of these cards that you can run are free. And actually, let's talk about these cards here. So if you have the red or the yellow Promised Pendant, like I said, you do want to search out these, because these do get effects from these Promised Pendants. But if you already have these in your hand, you might not want to get them, although honestly, these cards are great by themselves. But you could also get like a support card, like this one's really good and actually also benefits from your Promised Pendants. If you're running the Feeling for the Last 10 Years Climax combo, you want to get one of these if you're missing the actual character but you have the Climax. You could also get the Clock Encore Kosaki. You could also, get the character discard Encore Chitoge. Or, this one. And let me actually talk about this one for a bit. You will turbo through your deck really quickly because you're doing a lot of searching and a lot of clocking, so you gotta run this card right here. One of the best cards in the set, Angel in White Kosaki. She has a free deck refresh when you only have 5 cards in your library, and then you draw a card instead of taking that deck refresh damage. She's not a Promised Pendant card, but goddammit, she's really, really helpful in any of your Nisekoi decks. You may not only want to run the blue Promised Pendant as your backup, you might also want to run Chitoge as a ghost, or maybe the 1-0 blue Marika backup. You might also want to run these Kosakis here, and you might want to run this one as well. That way you don't rely entirely on the color restriction for this blue event. Oh, also these two are anti-early drop cards. That's all I gotta say about the Promised Pendants and Nisekoi. Like I said, I love this deck a lot. It's a lot of fun to play. I have put all of these cards that I've mentioned in the WSDECKS in the description below. I also have my regular and a modified version of my deck in the description as well. There's a lot of different decks you could build that could utilize the Promised Pendants. Personally, I run a tricolor build, which is red, blue, and yellow. You can build whatever you want. That's the beauty of this game. And that is all I have to say for today. Thank you guys for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more Weiss Schwarz news and content, and I'll see you guys in the next video.